So the first thing to know is that Jointly is available as an app. It's available on Android and iOS. You can just search for it on either of those individual stores, or I'll put some links over in a minute, or it is also on the home page. And you can also run it through a web browser. So the first thing I'm just going to post there for you in the chat is the main URL for the web address. I'm also going to just post for you now, just in case you ever have a problem finding it. There's the Google Play Store address for finding it for Android. And then lastly, but not least, is the App Store for iOS. As I've already touched upon, if when you're using the app you need any support, that comes through to myself, or even if after this session, if there's anything, I know what it's like myself, sometimes you go through a thing and you think, oh, I wish I'd asked this. I'll just post in the chat last of all. That's the email address for support of anything Jointly. So do at any time feel free to drop me a line, whether you're using it or you've got questions about using it. So to start with, let's just share my screen. And if I can get a thumbs up from anyone, or Michael, if you can let me know, you can see that screen. Yeah, lovely. Okay, so that's the Jointly homepage. It's very, very simple to get started. You can sign up even before you want to start using it. The sign up process is pretty straightforward. All that's required is first name, surname, email address, and a password, and to confirm that you've read the terms of use and privacy. Just to be, for anyone who's concerned, we're extremely strict with the security on where the data is held. Without getting too techie, we use the same data centers as Amazon. We use Amazon Web Services for the back end of Jointly, so they're extremely secure. Again, if that's something that anyone's ever got any concerns about, or they want to fire any questions over to me, it's probably a bit of a longer subject in itself, but always feel free to drop me a line and I can reassure anyone on that. Once you've signed up for Jointly, it's about creating your circle of care. So you've already gone through, you've signed up with your email address and a password. We're going to log in now. And the first thing that we want to do is we can actually create a new care circle. So I've already got some on the go over here that I can show you, but we're going to say now that we're starting afresh. The first thing to note is that if you work for an organisation that subscribes to Jointly, some large organisations do, such as Tesco, Asda, people like that, they will often give their employees an access code that means that they could use it. If you're an individual, it's when you create a circle, it's a one-off fee of £2.99. The thing to explain with that, which is really good, is that it is a one-off fee. So if, for example, it's a particular person you're caring for, and there's maybe 10 of you that are in that circle of caregivers, the only time that £2.99 gets paid is when an individual creates the care circle. So you create that care circle, you pay the £2.99, you can then invite as many of your loved ones and friends and caregivers as you want to that circle, and none of them pay that fee again. It's just paid the one-off for the creation of the circle. When we create our circle, we'll just go over some of the info, the basic info. So we can set up our members, we can invite individual other caregivers to the care circle. We can decide whether we're going to give them admin rights, which means they can do things like change medication types, invite more people to the circle, etc. We can say, well, we don't really want to make them necessarily full admin, but we want them to say, for example, change medication. We're referring here about seeing private category information. What that is that sometimes there might be messages and there might be categories of care that if, for example, you might invite a paid carer to the circle, you might not necessarily want them to see. If it's particularly private and it's a family matter, you might not necessarily want other people to be able to see that information. So we can set there whether we want people to be privy to that information. And we can also say whether we want that person that we're inviting to the circle to be an emergency contact. So the person themselves, so we've got here at the moment, we're saying that Bill is the person that we're caring for. So we're going to create now our individual who's at the circle, at the centre of the circle of care. Now, although in this case we've got Bill already set up, we can go through some of the sorts of things that you can put in place against the individual to give you an idea of the information, the basic information that you can build. So first of all, we've got their image, we've got their first second name, got some sort of very general information, what they like to be called, date of birth, details of their conditions, dietary requirements, particular details or difficulties, any details of particular assistance that they like, likes and dislikes, further general information. We can drill further with that into the additional information, which is home, landline details, mobile, medical history, NHS number, if you wish to enter that, power of attorney details. But the sort of real sort of power comes into it in that we can create as many custom fields as we want. So this is really quite helpful in that if, for example, say the person suffers from asthma or suffers from something that you feel that you really want pointed out to someone who's a caregiver, you can create as many custom fields of information about that person as you wish. And you can even add in their pointers to things like websites to do with, like, for example, their condition, things like that, that you might particularly want to draw their attention to. So now that we've created Bill at the centre of our circle of care, as I say, we've gone over how we can invite other members along. We're then presented with our overview page. And our overview page gives us a detail of everything that's happening in chronological order with Bill's care. Everybody can contribute to this, and it pulls strands from these different areas. We can also at a glance see the other members of our care circle, and we can see any pending invitations that we've sent out to anyone else. We've got our jointly at a glance, which is really quite helpful. It's without having to go in depth of a sort of an online manual. It gives you at a glance the basics of how to get yourself up and running. We've also got our FAQ, which again, it covers off an awful lot of the most common questions about how to set up a circle and use it. And we've also got our contact details for support, which, as I say, comes through to me. And we've got our far more detailed user guide, which goes into every individual feature and exactly how it works, taking you through step by step. So one thing to point out, I know that I'm running this on a web browser, and the look and feel is exactly the same when you're on an Android device or on an Apple device, and the features are exactly the same. We've been extremely careful to make sure that no one feature set is different on any particular platform. So we've kind of gone through, we've signed up as a user. We've created, in this case, we've created Bill as the person at the centre of our care circle. We've gone over that we've invited some other members to that care circle. Just to explain, when you send those invites out, that goes out as an email to an individual. And at that point, they'll also be, as well as being invited to join the care circle, they'll actually be invited to sign up to the platform. But just as I say again, just to make it clear, they don't incur any cost when they're joining a pre-established care circle. So now we've got bills set up. As I say, we've got our overview screen, which is what we see when we log into Jointly, which gives us a little summary of what's been going on over the last few days or so with Bill. We've also got our profile summary. So we can see on our profile summary that some of the information that we entered earlier on, our members of our care circle. We've got the opportunity to edit Bill's information, but we've got a nice little summary as well of some of the information that's stored about Bill, so that we can see that we've got one message across the group. We haven't got any notes. We've got some tasks. There's some calendar entries, some reminders, and there's some medication and devices. I'll just now move through a couple of them sections and then we'll do a little pause again. So if we start first of all with the messages, and the messages are exactly that. It's trying to sort of keep everything, once you're in Jointly, in that one place where it's easy to find it. So the thought process was that if we could include a private messaging system, very much along the lines of WhatsApp or text or things like that, but keep it within Jointly, it makes it very much easier to refer to rather than keep on swapping in and out of different applications as you go for different information. Or, you know, sent a message from such and such in text, where did I put that? Or I've sent this, I got that on WhatsApp. And it's very, very simple to post a message and to attach any necessary images as well. What I'll do is I'll go over the calendar and notes, and then perhaps we'll do another little pause. The calendar is very, very sort of powerful. It lets us see a view. We can go in, if we've got categories that we've set up within the calendar, we can filter on those, or we can create new categories. We can also color code those categories. So it might be that you want to make note of things like hospital appointments on the calendars, the shopping trips, more trivial things maybe like walking the dog and things like that, but you want to give them color codes that make it easier at a view to see those different events and when they are on a certain day. And the other reason why they're there as well is that this calendar is printable. So, you know, as much as we're saying we'd like everyone to use the app all the time, you know, the truth is that sometimes it might be a case of that you set things up in the calendar, and as a reminder, you print a copy of it off and stick it on the fridge door. But if you've got that color coding, again, it makes it easier at a view, sort of see what's going on, and just really sort of plan things. Within the calendar, we can create a new event. So we can give it a name. So for example, we'll say it's blood tests here. The nice thing that we've done recently is that we've got Google Maps integration, keeping you all within the application. So we can start to type in a location. So we'll say Ashford Hospital, for example. We can say who within the care circle is responsible for that. So even though it's me creating it, might be, say, my cousin or whoever is responsible, they're actually taking my uncle off to that appointment. So we can say who that task is allocated to. We can put in a description. We can upload as many images as we want. So it might be a case of that we've got PDFs of hospital notes or hospital letters or things like that, and we want to attach it there so it's all in one place. We can say when that event starts, we can say when it ends, but we can also say if it repeats. So if it's a, you know, if it's a monthly hospital visit, we can actually say that it repeats, for example, on a monthly basis. We can say when it repeats until, so it could be that, well, for the next 6 months, you know, there's a monthly hospital visit, but at the end of that 6 months, it stops. We know that that's already set in the calendar, but we can also set ourselves reminders, and the reminders are both either email or push reminders. So they pop up on your phone, a little bubble saying, you know, blood tests due 15 minutes from now at Ashford Hospital, and we can set when those reminders go out. And as I said just now, we can give it a category or we can give it a new category. So if we wanted to say hospital appointments, and we wanted to make it easy to a glance to view, we can say that it's yellow. And again, it's that thing again of, do we want to make it private? So are we just sharing it amongst certain individuals in the circle, or are we making it globally known? So save. So that's our calendar function with appointments. I'll go on to notes. Notes are quite powerful. If I go in and create a new note, we get individuals using this for an awful lot of things. And it's become surprising actually just how much use people get out of it. Originally, the idea was to, you know, if someone's visiting someone regularly, to make notes maybe about how they're eating, concerns about weight, things like that. But it's actually become a little bit more useful than that, in that we've had some people, for example, we had a young lady who was having to give injections to her grandmother, and she'd seen a number of NHS guide videos, and she'd been pointed in the direction of how to administer these injections, but she wanted it all in one place. So what we did with the attached file is we said, well, you can create a note, you can make it available to yourself, you can give it a category, but you can also attach those video tutorials for what you've got to do in that note. So again, you're going to the one place just to find that information. So if we do, first of all, a message, so say, for example, we say, hello all, this is what I was saying Nan was asking about. Okay, so this is a message that we're going to send out to the group. And then when we want to attach an image, we can just click on attach image there. And we'll say, for example, that it's this alarm clock. Nan's been saying that she wants an old-fashioned alarm clock. She's fed up with the one she's got now. It never works. We can say that. And then that will then attach itself to the message. And we can then post it. And then all of the group can see, or the people that we've decided to include in that group, they can see the message, hello all, this is what I was saying Nan was asking about. And there's the picture of the alarm clock that Nan was asking about. In notes, we can do the same thing. So say, rather than sending it as a message, we wanted to make a note on there that when cousin William goes to the shop next, could he pick Nan up the type of alarm clock she wanted. So in the note, I could say, this is the type of clock. And I could, can you please look for one? And we can give it a little category. We'll put it against shopping. And then we can either say attach a file or upload an image. And we'll say upload an image. And we'll say, there's our alarm clock. And there's the picture of our alarm clock. Or we can, if we've got multiple things that we want to add on there, so say there was a couple of other alternatives, that was, you know, that was Nan's preference, but there's some other alternatives as well. We can attach some, we'll forget about the fact that this is actually a picture of a bathroom, but we can use the paper clip to attach another alternative image as well. And then we can save that. And then we've got in our notes there, this is the type of clock. Can you please look for one for me? And if we drill into it, we've got the greater detail, and we can see that, oh, that's the type of clock she'd like. Oh, and also, let's have a little look. Oh, there's an alternative as well. It's just downloaded for us an image of. What I would say, and with the calendar, which I did say is that I said that there's Google Maps integration in there. You can also as well, when you've entered your location at a later date, when you open the entry, if you tap on it, it will open Google Maps and it will guide you there. But that's kind of detail. Anyway, right, we'll go over the next three sections. So we've got tasks, and really tasks are, it's a little bit different from what we put in our calendar entry, because they're more, tasks is more aimed at sort of a one-off sort of thing. So we've got there, for example, that Sandra is taking Bill over for his eye check. We can add comments against it, so we can say things like, oh, Sandra, remember last time when Bill had those eye drops? It really caused him headaches for the next 2 days. Can you ask the optician about it? You can assign a task to an individual. So just as we've got Sandra there assigned the task there, we can assign it to anyone else. We can also, when a task is complete, we can mark it up as such. And the nice thing is that with all of these things that we're going through, we have all of our sort of like audit trail in that overview that we covered at the top. So when Sandra has taken Bill for his eye checkup and she marks it as complete, we'll actually see that in our overview where, oh, on whatever date, Sandra took Bill for his eye checkup. She made the comment, she completed it. All right, okay, we can rest assured that that was done. But we can go in with any of these tasks as well as adding new ones. We can go in and we can edit any existing one. We can give them categories, or again, we can add a category. So we can say, for example, we're going to create a category for Bill called eye test. We're saying, right, okay, it's in that category. We can change our date. As I say, we can say who's responsible for it. We can add it to a list if we wish. So we could, for example, say that we create a list called health checks. And we add this particular task to that list. And we can then, if we wish, tick them off as we go along. And again, there's this thing about jointly having us remind us about it. So in this case, we're saying that we would like Sandra, who's responsible for taking Bill along, to be reminded 2 days before the task that she needs to be doing that. Is she off work? Is she going to be available for it? Reminders are a little bit of a thing where it's if you just want a quick and easy list to work from. So this really came about because we had a lot of people who were saying, well, excuse me, I love the calendar. It's really good for scheduling in regular events and things that are happening in the future and where they are and where I've got to be. I love the task list because it's really good at setting up things like, you know, like I've just said, health checks and things like that. But what about sort of day-to-day things like the weekly shop, or, you know, we've got a cleaning rota that we make it that, you know, every week I clean downstairs when I come in on a Thursday, my sister cleans upstairs when she comes in on a Friday. We really want something quick and easy that we can put together for that. And that's really where the reminders list came in. So with the reminders list, you can create a reminder. So for example, here we've called one weekly shop. We've called another one task tick list. And you can give it whatever name you want, but we can say, well, does it repeat? So for example, if it's shopping, does it repeat once a week, every week, until when? Do we want to be reminded about it? Yeah, we want to be reminded about it. We can give it a category. And if we drill into it, we can then add a number of items onto it. So if it was a shopping list, we can add an item and we can say, for example, fruit and veg. And then we can gradually build up. We can say bread. And the idea is that we can create this little reminders list. We know that it's set to remind us when it's due each week. But the nice thing about it is we can either assign it to an individual, as we can with everything else in Jointly, or we can just say, well, anyone can pick this up. And then when they've got it, they wander around the shop, and as you're completing it, you go through and you just tick it off your list. And the nice thing is it gives you an audit trail, so we can actually go into our history. You know, if someone was responsible for undertaking, you know, if could be that they were doing the shopping, could be picking up pension, could be whatever it is, which is requires a quick, actionable list. We can actually tick it off as we go along, and as the rest of the circle, we can go in and see, oh right, that's fine. Yeah, Sandra did go and get the shopping yesterday. And we can go back over the history of it. And that's what our reminders are for. And again, we've got here saying that we get a reminder about our reminder 15 minutes before, and if it's overdue, 1 day later. We can go in, we can create a list of medications. We can say what it is. We can say what the purpose of it is. We can set either a predefined dosage pattern, or we can actually create a custom dosage pattern. So we can say that how many doses it is, at what time, and we can add as many of them through the day as needed. Again, we can set it up so that a notification goes out to people. We can say, if we want, it could be that something that we know is going to start, a prescription that is going to start, but we want to set everything up in advance. We can set a start date, we can set an end date, and we can say the location where that medication is administered. So, you know, if it's something that someone's having to attend a hospital visit that we've already set up in our calendar, we can add that location as to where they receive that medication. We can add in notes. We've got a couple of options there for notes. And we can also, a key thing is we can upload an image of what the box looks like, what the individual tablet looks like. One of the really useful things with the medication section in Jointly is that it looks at what's set up and what is due today, and it will always list that in today's medication. But if you've got other medications that are due against a different time period, you know, it could be that alternating medications on alternating days, it will list that under the all medications. And then when it's due, it will move it into today's medication. And the other thing that the all medications is quite useful for as well, and I've kind of been on the receiving end of this, is that, you know, it could be, for example, that you were prescribed something in the past. You want to keep a record of it on hand that's easily, you know, findable on your mobile in an emergency. But you might want to say in A&E or something like that, oh, just to let you know, they were prescribed such and such in 2015. When they took it, they had an allergic reaction to it. But you've still got a record of it under all medications. One of the areas where this is quite powerful is that we have a link up with an organisation called Pivotal. Pivotal make a smart pill dispenser, and you can actually link Jointly to that pill dispenser. And when you've set up your medication regime, the Pivotal pill dispenser will actually report back into Jointly to confirm that certain medications have been dispensed on time, or if there's a problem with that, you know, oh, the dispenser's got tipped over and it couldn't dispense correctly and things like that. So yeah, it's quite a powerful piece of the app. And that really covers the main of everything. We kind of covered a little bit ahead of time the ability to export data out, but I think hopefully going through all of these different areas, all of these different functions, keeping in mind that you can pick and choose information from all of these to export out into a contingency plan, or into just a dump of everything that's been going on with an individual, pulling out information from all of these areas. It is a very powerful tool.